In the supernatural world, there exists a risque demoness that people don't talk about quite enough. It is Succubus, the hellspawn sent down purely to make demon babies and spread her kind. The evil spirit has made a name for herself by taking over the minds of men and making them rife with carnal desire and bitter loneliness until they cannot resist her. When modern fans of succubi movies like Jennifer's Body or House of Temptation think of a succubus, the image of a Victoria's Secret model, complete with wings and a tad sharper nails, pops into the head. And that is about right. A succubus's beauty is unreal, but her legend is scary and creepy. An unlimited inspiration for everything from eldritch horror books, movies, vampire stories, and even old-world mystical lore. Her curious brand of romance and violence is not just successful because guys can't help going wild over her looks. The succubus has some really amazing powers, which range from inducing psychological torment and shape-shifting to stunning a guy into a sleep coma. In this video, we will explore everything about a succubus's physiology and powers, as well as famed stories that have earned her a fair amount of notoriety. But before we get into it, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing. It's a small click for you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. Let's go! What is a succubus? Succubus origins differ between mythological sources and Middle Age ones. In medieval folklore, a succubus was a supernatural being, a demon to be exact, who took the form of an irresistible woman to become intimate with men. The men who couple with her are usually in deep sleep, and sometimes even suffer from sleep coma when the act takes place. The word succubus, or succubi for plural, comes from two Latin words: succuba, which means paramour or an illicit partner, and succubare, which means to lie beneath. As the literal meaning suggests, our devil ladies are morally twisted mistresses of sorts who make their victims lie under them as they do their thing. Succubus Origin. To understand how a succubus is created or why she behaves the way she does, we must first explore the origin of the first succubus. While there's much mythical baggage attached to succubi, the most common origin story is rooted in the Jewish mystical figure Lilith. According to the alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith was Adam's first wife. The story begins much like the one most people know. God created a man and a woman, but in this version, it's Adam and Lilith, not Eve. However, things don't work out well for Adam. Soon after they're brought together, Lilith and Adam begin to quarrel. Lilith refuses to be Adam's submissive companion. She wants to take control, if you catch my meaning, something Adam strongly dislikes. Eventually, Lilith leaves Adam, cursing God's name as she departs. Adam complains to God, who sends 3 angels to retrieve her. However, the angels underestimate Lilith's power. By then, she has embraced her dark nature and confesses to having been created solely to harm innocent children. Though the angels fail to bring her back, they manage to get her to agree that she would have no power over babies wearing amulets inscribed with the angels' names. After leaving Adam, Lilith partners with the demon Samael, and together they become the first succubus and incubus, the male counterpart to a succubus. In addition to this tale, there are Arabic and Amazonian myths that reference succubi, and even the Greek sirens, a blend of women and birds, have contributed to the succubus lore. Suppose we step outside mythology and legend for a moment and think rationally. The succubus myth seems like a reaction to the rigid religious norms of the Middle Ages. For instance, if a man cheated on his wife, he would claim it wasn't him, it was a succubus who took advantage of him, making him a poor victim of her wicked scheme. Just like that, he's back within society's moral code, his adultery justified. The spookiest part is that there are even modern-day examples of men claiming they've spent several nights with succubi and were driven insane by the experience. We'll explore these stories later in the video.
What are you doing? Look up!
Succubus Anatomy. Is Succubus a vampire? A succubus is often thought of as a seductive female who is both proud and vengeful. Some lore suggests that behind her lips lies a set of fangs, though they are small and seldom noticed. Sometimes a succubus may become too weak, making her vulnerable to physical attacks. If she bites her attacker in this state, she will transfer her demonic powers to them, turning them into a succubus or incubus if her attacker is a guy. Although this sounds a lot like a vampire, the two creatures are quite different. While vampires are driven by bloodlust above all else, succubi are not. They are instead mentally wired to procreate and advance their species, meaning they primarily seek to have demon offspring. The whole seduction and mating process serves that purpose alone. In some cases, they may even possess the corpse of a recently deceased young woman and use the body as a vessel to carry out their tasks. So, while vampires may sometimes be inspired by succubus lore, they are a very different kind of creature. Does a succubus possess a seductive exterior? A succubus is the manifestation of a man's wildest dreams. She is quite literally the ultimate it girl, too seductive for a man's own good. However, even as a succubus morphs into the ideal woman you've always dreamed of, her internal biology remains unchanged. She is still a child of hell, and certain external signs reveal her true nature. In Jewish lore, it's said that even when a succubus is mid-act, with her entranced victim beneath her, if the victim looks closely enough, he may notice some of her demonic features, like fangs, claws, glowing or red eyes, and even wings. But usually, a man in this situation is in such a stupor that he can focus on nothing but her womanly allure. What about her wings and tail? When the succubi isn't trying to seduce a poor sod, she stays in her natural form, the description of which varies between legends. She is said to be a shapely winged demon with horns. She may even bear her demon teeth, which are rows of sharp incisors, when she feels like feeding on her victim's flesh. Though this is a rare event, it was popularized in the film Jennifer's Body. A succubus's wings are dragon-like, dark and rubbery. A few stories also show them with a pointed tail, likening them to a caricature of the devil. The modern representations give these evil women a much-needed glow-up. They show the succubus as a stunning young woman with either glowing or cold blue eyes, wearing sultry lingerie that somehow zips up around her wings, and she even has a set of beautiful wings, almost angel-like. Is a succubus trist fatal, a life-draining mechanism? Draining life from her victims is a primary physiological trait of a succubus. A succubus encounter, whether a fantastic experience for a fella or not, would not leave him feeling too hot later on. He would feel totally spent, with just a subconscious, dreamlike memory of the act. He would get weaker over time, even slipping into dementia. This is because a succubus consumes her victim's soul energy during their intimate interactions, making her stronger and boosting her regenerative powers, which we'll come to later in the video. This energy drain takes off with physical contact and saliva exchange with the succubus, implying special cells and abnormal secretions from the salivary glands. As a result, even a succubus kiss can suck out living energy from her nighttime pets. Some call it the kiss of death, a term that refers to victims dying at the lips of some younger, more inexperienced succubi who don't have total control over their powers yet. Do succubi use dream manipulation? A succubus is a psychic mind manipulator who plays bone with her victims, toying with their brains before she has her way with them. She penetrates her victim's mind well before she physically approaches him, creating visions of his darkest fantasies and also amplifying his loneliness. The victim becomes frustrated and, even worse, isolated, making him an easier target. Akin to most evil entities, the succubus then goes to work at nightfall when her victim is fast asleep and at his most vulnerable, and in most cases, the guy never even hears her enter the room. Sneaking up on her victims completely undetected is a pretty tidy trick. Let's go into how she does it next. Adaptations for nightmare activity. Succubi operate under the cover of the night. Their predatory stalking instincts and night vision are almost like those of jungle cats. Stealthy and quiet, they're able to mount their victims without them even knowing about it. They rely on exceptional vision to pinpoint their prey and follow them from a distance with calculated soft steps, which may be aided by their wings, which give them a floaty stride. This adaptation makes for a spy-like succubus hunt, which no guy succubi can ever be prepared for. By now, you must be thinking, that is a whole lot of trouble this hot demon is going through just to sleep with a guy, but she has her reasons for it. Let us explore her motive in the next section.
Now we can be friends.
Can a succubus conceive? Reproductive Anatomy. In The Hammer of Witches by Heinrich Kramer, one of the best reads on witchcraft, we uncover that a succubi, above all else, wants to bear kids. Don't roll your eyes, you guys. Even demon rapists are allowed to have motherly instincts. On second thoughts, maybe not. Anyway, it isn't easy for them. Kramer explains that, in traditional belief, angels and demons cannot reproduce. So, the clever succubus takes the unsuspecting surrogate route. This is how it works. A succubus coaxes one poor guy at a time into bedding with her to steal his sperm. Once she has it, she delivers it to an incubus, the male version of a succubus. He goes out and does the same thing as her, finding a woman victim and implanting the sperm within her. The woman becomes pregnant and gives birth to a demon infant, or a cambion. So, with a little bit of determination, an incubus, and the use of their natural anatomical weapons, a succubus is able to promulgate her kind. While a succubus's own physiology is devoid of reproductive facilities, she is equipped with much to ensure she reaches her baby goals one way or another. Some theories suggest that a succubus can not only shapeshift herself into a gorgeous woman, but she can also shapeshift into an incubus and directly sneak up to a woman and plant the sperm she's gathered into her. How versatile is this gal, right? How powerful are succubi's regenerative abilities? Succubi are known to heal scrapes and cuts within seconds. This also applies to more extensive wounds. Their regenerative abilities are quick and resilient. But you'll remember we spoke about succubi taking their strength from sucking the life force out of people. So imagine this. If a succubus has a dry mouth, like she's just not up for victimizing anyone, instead, she kicks her feet up, watches sitcoms, and orders takeaway for a bit. She may begin to weaken, which will wane the speed of her cellular regeneration. Despite her superhuman powers, and ironically, because of them, succubi has an extremely fast metabolism. They need human energy regularly, and if they skip consuming it for a few months, their regenerative and other superpowers will fade into a shadow. Does a succubus release sedative toxins? A succubus's bite and kiss are known to relax their victim, so they may get into the act without a fight. Now, I don't know about you, but even if it were the most beautiful woman in the world who had woken me up when I was fast asleep, I'd wake up swinging. But a succubus is equipped to avoid this rude awakening scenario. Her saliva is likely laced with chemicals or toxins that either sedate the victims or create a euphoric state within them, softening them up for the things that follow. Sometimes, the victim doesn't even realize he's been raped in his sleep until he wakes up to the evidence of the previous night's activity. This shows that succubus mouth toxins can be administered to have the same effect as chloroform, which is a strong euphoriant and sedative used during surgeries and rubbed on white hankies by kidnappers. Is there a symbiotic relationship between a succubus and her victim? While succubi and their victims don't typically have a symbiotic relationship, there are instances where a succubus binds herself to one man and bestows gifts of vitality and success upon him. The two would operate on a controlled, life force draining arrangement, allowing both the demon and her man to be happy for a time. A story by Walter Map, a medieval writer, describes one such unusual relationship in the Trifles of the Courtiers. Gerbert of Aurillac, who later became Pope Sylvester II, had a relationship with a succubus named Meridiana. Here's the story. Gerbert fell for the daughter of a university dean, but she was something of a gold digger. She thought he wasn't in her league, as he lacked wealth and fame. After her rejection, Gerbert became obsessed with her and fantasized about her constantly. In this period of vulnerability, the succubus Meridiana approached him, and they entered into a relationship. Meridiana offered herself fully to Gerbert, even promising him wealth and a lasting legacy. Her only condition was that he remain faithful to her. She fed on his energy in small amounts, which didn't affect his health, and she remained loyal to Gerbert. Gerbert, on the other hand, saw his wealth skyrocket. During his time with Meridiana, he achieved massive success and was eventually appointed pope. However, as a clergyman, he had to keep his relationship with Meridiana strictly secret. This is where things began to unravel. The dean's daughter, who had noticed Gerbert's rapid rise, came crawling back to him. Gerbert couldn't resist. He failed the gold digger test spectacularly, choosing the material girl at the expense of the succubus who had given him everything. Honestly, why would she ever pick a guy named Gerbert? Out of all the men she could have wrapped around her gorgeous pinky. At first, it seemed that the succubus let him off easy for his betrayal by merely revealing his future. She told him he would die on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, but this information became a thorn in his side, constantly on his mind. Gerbert grew weak and increasingly ill after Meridiana left, suggesting that perhaps she wasn't so kind in her retreat after all, likely draining more than the agreed share of life in their final encounter. What are the superpowers possessed by a succubus? Today, if we were to reimagine a succubus, she would probably be a woman who is charming and deceptive, who takes men into bed and comes out of the experience rich while the poor guy wears out in her absence. I know what you're thinking, she sounds a lot like your ex. Well, there may be a few differences. For one, succubus in their human form are blessed with superhuman strength in addition to their regenerative healing, shape-shifting, sedating, and dream-infiltrating powers that we covered earlier on. As far as mystical beings go, they're not the strongest, but they can easily overpower even the beefiest male victims. They can also grossly decapitate their victims in one sitting if they get cocky with them. They have superior stamina, which allows them to fight or make love for long hours without breaking a sweat. Moreover, they've got super speed and can vanish from the scene in the blink of an eye if needed. Succubus are also talented telepaths, which is how they work out how a guy views his perfect woman in order to shapeshift into her form. Our demon women can also levitate their human form into the air, though it isn't clear whether they do it with the help of their wings or not. How to defeat a succubus. Earlier in the video, we told you about Lilith's weakness. The first succubus could not empower the children who wore an amulet with the names of the 3 angels sent to capture her. These names are Senoi, Sansenoi, and Semengela. This also goes for every succubi since Lilith. Special amulets like one of the angels' names can deter a succubus. Like all other hellspawns, succubi are immortal, but they can feel pain and discomfort. In rare cases, their immortality itself could be challenged. I'm sure Hellboy could cause some serious damage to these victims if they ever RSVP to the same party. But since we mere humans don't have access to Hellboy's custom gun stash, let's look at some over-the-counter methods. Holy water and holy ground can both burn and hurt demons, including the succubi, causing them to retreat quickly and easily. Some practices in old magic arts, too, contain the power of keeping a succubus at bay. Weapons made with Empyrean steel, an alloy coming straight from heaven, will completely squash any succubi it touches. If the succubus acts through another person or uses a possessed host, the host will sadly become collateral damage here. The celestial light of angels can put off a succubus too, but the problem is that succubi are hard to catch. They pry and work in the night, choosing only to appear to consume a victim's life energy. So unless one is identified by repeated crimes in an area, a vigilante angel, if such a cool thing even exists, would never find out about her whereabouts. Or you can just take up a night watchman's job and never sleep at night again. Problem solved. Real-life cases. 2 psychiatric cases in the Psychiatry Journal of the U.S. National Library of Medicine, or NLM, archives bear an eerie resemblance to the succubus legends. The first case involves an 18-year-old from a middle-class background. His 3-year struggle with mental illness left him riddled with delusions of persecution. He described a specific recurring night terror, in which he felt a woman taking advantage of him while he slept, leaving him terrified afterward. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. The second case was a 24-year-old cannabis user whose illness had persisted for 2 years, with symptoms such as delusions of love and tactile hallucinations. Tactile hallucinations are the most vivid type, where a person can touch and feel things they imagine, as if they're a part of their environment. chilling stuff. This patient described encounters with a female teacher who would speak to him at night, both in his sleep and sometimes while he was awake. She would render him unable to defend himself against her advances, and he claimed she took total control of his body. These experiences led him to abandon college completely, isolating himself in his home out of fear. He was also diagnosed with schizophrenia. Marvelous verdict. We often dismiss our nightmares as our mind's grand theater, flaunting our fears and fantasies. But with a succubus in the picture, these dreams could very well be a reality experienced by a powerless sleeping body. As creepy as it sounds, or fun depending on who's listening, the folklore of the succubus continues to evolve as it taps into man's darkest primal instincts. While these versions of sirens appear in legends from many different cultures, their most popular interpretations arose as a pushback against the taboo surrounding sexual activities in medieval times. It's understandable, given that in those days, you couldn't even sneeze the wrong way without someone labeling it sinful. Succubi, while not the strongest of supernatural creatures, have all the tools they need to sperm snatch. And if you think about it, wanting to make kids isn't such a sinful aspiration. The problem arises because they are demons with no moral compass, trying to create more demons like themselves. But in their defense, they don't know they're evil. They only know what they know, right? I think I'll stop there before you roast me in the comments for that take. That's it from us. One final piece of advice for the guys out there: better keep some holy water handy by the bedside before you turn in. And if you liked this video, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already.